I would like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for February the 11th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please open the board for roll call. Members, please be sure you are signed in so we can take the roll. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 17 members present. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Members, are there any personal orders or announcements this morning? Hearing none and seeing none. Today we will have 5 budget hearings, and we're going to begin with the Department of Treasury. And if they will start making their way up to the front, members, please just refer to your dashboard for all presentation documents. And without objection, we're going to go out of session. All right, Mr. Treasurer, good to see you this morning. And we will just remind you that we will control the microphones up here. So once you see the red light come on, you are ready to proceed. And without further ado, good morning and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman and members. It's my pleasure to be with you today. David Lillard, Tennessee State Treasurer. With me today, I have Rick DeBray, CPA, who's the Deputy Treasurer of the Department, and Brian Derrick on the end down there, who is the Director of Accounting for the Treasury Department. It's good to be with you to discuss Treasury's budget for fiscal year 2026-2027. Before I go over the department's budget request, I do want to mention that the annual Treasury report was electronically sent to members last fall and is available on the Treasury Department's website. It is a great source for information on the programs of the Treasury Department and the ones that we administer, and it also includes information on the economic impact that the Treasury Department services, retirement benefit payments, and other program payments provide to each of Tennessee's 95 counties. The Treasury Department's base budget for fiscal year 2026-27 before cost increases is $182,095,500, of which a significant amount is $91.9 million in sports wagering revenues that are passed through the Treasury Department to either the Lottery for Education reserves, if needed, or for the public school construction and maintenance disbursements to local education agencies. The governor's recommended fiscal budget in his proposal is $211,455,600, and after including the department's cost increase requests in the amount of $9,360,000 and $20 million in general appropriations to subsidize the public school construction and maintenance disbursements. As you know, the Treasury Department's operating cost is funded primarily through asset-based fees generated from balances on earnings on investments managed by the department and from a component of the contributions made by employers, participants, and agencies in the various programs administered by the department. We appreciate the administration including the cost increases in 2 positions requested by the department in the governor's proposed budget for fiscal 26-27 as outlined in the budget document on pages B16 through B18. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my introductory remarks. I'll be happy to answer any questions or provide information for the committee.
All right, Mr. Treasurer, thank you very much for your opening statements. And we do have some folks on a list here to ask a couple questions about the Treasurer's budget. So we will begin with Chairman Baum. Chairman Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks, and good morning, Treasurer Lillard. You mentioned the Education Freedom Scholarship Act and the way the Treasury is administering some of those funds for school projects, school construction and maintenance. You got a few new positions to do that. Have those positions been filled?
If I could, I'll ask Rick DeBray, who's heading up that project for us, to answer that question, Chairman.
Rick DeBray, Deputy Treasurer for Support Services. We have not filled those positions yet. We are actually supplementing some current positions in both our IT and our financial strategies area to complete the readiness for those disbursements.
Okay.
And we have been doing intensive work too in IT to prepare the systems necessary to disperse those funds when the time comes.
Okay. And one more question kind of about the administration of those funds. I assume there's some administration fees. Where do you get the money for those? Does it come from the general fund or does it come from the sports wagering or some other source?
The provisions of that act enable us to fund the administrative costs with the sports wagering revenue as part of the overall funding.
And is that funding available?
That's yet to be determined. As you know, the act has a provision in it that says that if the Lottery for Education program needs funding from the sports wagering, that it would go to the Lottery for Education. So it really has to go through a closing process for this first year, which is why the governor has put a subsidy in for the current year for at least the first tier of payments for that program.
Okay, I guess maybe that's my last question. Since this money kind of there's kind of a pecking order on how this money is allocated. If it is all used up by some of the activities upstream, then when you get to the point of trying to be reimbursed for administrative expenses, then what would be your recourse?
Actually, we would recover admin costs off the top. So whatever's left after that would be available for the disbursements.
Okay.
Because of the shortfall in the sports wagering fund, the governor is taking the approach of supplementing in general fund revenues through the Appropriations Act.
Okay. Thank you all.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hicks of Washington. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
Yes, sir.
thank you for being here, Treasurer. In the 26-27 proposed budget, it includes $30 million for THDA starter home revolving fund. And also in the budget, there is a position for the Treasurer's office that will this position be funded from fees assessed to THDA for the management of that fund, or what will that position be for? What does that look like?
Well, Chairman, the position is that under the statutes of the state, and most people don't realize this, but the statutes say that the state treasurer is the treasurer of THDA. And that implies a certain level of responsibility with respect to the fiscal affairs of that agency. And the statute also says that the treasurer can delegate those oversight responsibilities and such to the director of the THDA. Back in the 1990s, Steve Adams, one of my predecessors as state treasurer, executed a one-page memorandum of understanding with the then director of THDA, where they basically allocated or delegated all of these responsibilities to the director of THDA. THDA's business has changed tremendously since that time, since the early 1990s, i.e. it's grown a lot. And as you know, the debt levels in THDA have gone up significantly over recent years. Of course, that debt is not general obligation debt of the state. It's revenue bonds in effect from these mortgage revenues and mortgages that are 100% guaranteed by the FHA, a federal agency. But that debt level is fairly significant. And in light of that and some other issues, like they've taken mortgage servicing back in-house, they don't contract it out anymore. We're servicing our own mortgages through THDA. I've felt that there's a need to have greater coordination between the investment portfolio of THDA and the fixed income division of our investment section in the Treasury Department. We have a lot of expertise there and all that. That literally is several billions of dollars in revenues that they are, investments that they are managing through that function now, the agency is. And I think it needs a higher degree of attention. This position would be, if we're going to do that, begin to get more involved in their debt financing management of their investment portfolio, then we're also going to need to have better understanding and input into their cash flow operations, because they have cash flow needs as these mortgages mature, et cetera. And that is something that we need a position in order to do. Few people realize that we manage cash flow for state government in the Treasury Department. We're constantly talking to state agencies like the Bureau of TennCare when they have $200 million in provider payments coming due in the next week or so. Then they coordinate with us, and we liquidate state investments in order to be sure that that money is there in the account to clear those payments when they come through. And that's true of every state agency. So this is simply bringing more in line with what's going on in internal cash management and state government with THDA.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you for your knowledge and hard work in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Mr. Treasurer, I got a question that's concerning the risk management fund. I know this budget includes $1 million in other funding to offset the risk of loss with our state's casualty and property risk. So I know your agency sent a letter, and in that it stated about numerous appeals that had been filed with FEMA. And of course, it was seeking reimbursements for the deductible losses after declared disasters. And so can you just give us an update of what that's looking like with that whole process there?
Well, we are, as the letter indicated, in a series of appeals with FEMA. All of those appeals have been largely consolidated. And in fact, I think it's this week, we have arbitrations going on in Washington with FEMA about those claims and in an attempt to recover for the state of Tennessee. So that's literally where it is now. It's going on now. The arbitrations are.
Any inclination of will we be successful in those appeals? Or I guess, I know that's a hard question to answer, but.
Yeah, it would be hard, Chairman, because since it's an ongoing litigation matter, in effect, I hesitate to comment on it openly about this, but we certainly hope to be successful, let's put it that way.
All right, thank you. Members, I have no one else on the list this morning. And still seeing none. Mr. Treasurer, thank you. You did a thorough job, and thank you very much for what you do for our state.
Thank you so much to you and the committee, Chairman.
Say the least. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the Tennessee Education Lottery Corporation. And I do see President Paul making her way up and her staff. Members, just a reminder that materials are on the dashboard. And Ms. Paul, just a reminder, we will work the microphones up here. So when you see the red light come on, you are ready to go. So thank you for being here. It's certainly good to see you.
Nice to see you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for inviting us to give you some good news about the lottery. With me is Andy Davis, who is our CFO. And as I usually do, we talk about creation to date numbers and the impact that the lottery's had over the 22 years that we've been in operation. Our total sales since we began are at 33 billion. Sorry about that. 80% of those sales come from our instant ticket products, and 20% of those sales come from our draw-based games. Since our first full year, our gross revenues have grown at an average rate of almost 4% a year. Inception to date, the important number is we've raised over $8.1 billion for the education programs that we fund. There are over 2 million students who have benefited from scholarships and grants. Players have won over $22 billion, and retailers have earned over $2 billion. Now, this fiscal year, through last Saturday, our profits are up approximately $12 million over last year. So we're on target to have a record year over last year's sales. So that's certainly a good thing. Ticket revenues so far are $896 million in instant games and $250 million in draw-style games. We had 2 large Powerball jackpots this year, which has certainly been beneficial. Last year, there weren't any, which was certainly problematic for us in terms of last year's numbers. But our total education funding through December 31st was $231.7 million. When we presented our estimates for both the governor's budget and the funding board last year, we estimated that our revenues would be between $434 million and $445 million. And our present trends have put us at about the midway point of that. So at this point, it looks like we'll return roughly $440 million. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andy to go over the presentation you have, unless you have any questions for me right now.
You may proceed. Thank you.
Right, thank you. In terms of our estimates for fiscal year 2026 revenues and net lottery proceeds, as Rebecca mentioned, there's three major game categories we have, which is Tennessee Instant Games, multi-jurisdictional games like Powerball, Mega Millions, and a couple other games, and then Tennessee Draw games, Cash 3, Cash 4, and Daily Tennessee Jackpot and Tennessee Cash. On our instant games, projected to contribute approximately 82% of our estimated revenues this year, which would be gross revenues between 1.54 to 1.56 billion this fiscal year for our instant game products. Multi-jurisdictional games are projected in the range of 179 to 204 million, with Powerball being the largest estimates between 105 to 116 million. As Rebecca mentioned, that includes two large jackpots that we've had this fiscal year to date of 1.7 billion in September and 1.8 billion in December. Mega Millions is estimated to generate game revenues in the range of 105 to 106. In the range of 59 to 62 million. That also includes a $980 million jackpot that we generated back in November. The other multi-jurisdictional games, Lotto America Cash for Life, and which will be replaced with Millionaire for Life beginning this month, projected to generate between 24 to 26 million this fiscal year. Tennessee Draw style games projected in the range of 157 to 161 million, with Cash 3 and Cash 4 being the largest contributors to that number at 129 to 131 million. In terms of our direct expenses, there are three major categories specific to gross revenues or tied to gross revenues. Those are the prizes that are awarded, and this year we estimated in the range of 1.13 to 1.16 billion for fiscal year 2026. Our retailer commissions as a percentage of gross revenues at 6.5%, estimated between 123 to 126 million. And our major gaming vendor fees estimated between 32.2 to 33.8 million. Those are the fees paid to our two major vendors, Brightstar, which manages our system and terminals at retail, over 5,500 locations, and then Scientific Games, which provides instant game printing and distribution. Non-direct expenses includes advertising, non-direct gaming, and general administrative is budgeted at 37.7 million this fiscal year. As Rebecca mentioned, our estimation of lottery for education proceeds currently 434 to 445 million, trending at around 440 million as of most recent month end. Estimates for after-school program proceeds is $18 million this fiscal year, and that is the maximum amount by statute that we can contribute to that program. As a recap, our total lottery proceeds in total gross was $1,763 million to $1,799 million. For fiscal year 2027, we currently projected between 2 and 2.5% annual growth in terms of our net lottery proceeds, which gives us a range of 442 to 455 million for fiscal year 2027. That's a summary of our projected budget for this fiscal year and for next fiscal year.
All right. Thank you very much. And we do have some folks here that have some questions regarding the budget. So let's begin with Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, President Paul and team for being here today. Last January, we started collecting online. I'm hiding behind Larry Miller, but collected online games, started collecting online gaming. Could you tell us how many of the states that participate in Powerball actually utilize online gaming?
I'll have to get you that answer. It is, I would guess, total guess about 50% of them.
Okay. The total revenue over the last 12 months, obviously, this is one of the changes as we've seen lottery revenues kind of, we'll call it plateau over the last several years. I guess, how do you feel about online gaming being added in January being the reason why we were able to see improvement this year? Do you think it's online gaming or is it just participation altogether?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons, and certainly I believe online gaming is the future of where we need to go. For the younger player, isn't as frequently in a convenience store. You can't use debit or credit in a convenience store. So that's problematic for anyone under the age of 30. So I think for the future, that's where we need to go. We've done 2 million total in online sales. And as I said, our profits will be near 440 million. I think there are two things. We've worked on a number of changes in our instant ticket product to create some products that players have told us they want, which we do a lot of focus group testing on. And we've been fortunate to have 2 jackpots in Powerball that are over $1 billion. Well, we didn't have any last year. And so often that's cyclical. If one of those jackpots had been last year, it had been in June rather than in July, then you would have seen a different story, not for the calendar year, but certainly for last fiscal year versus this fiscal year. So sometimes that's just the luck of the draw. Over time, you'll see that even out. And as I said, over the last 22 years, our growth has averaged nearly 4% annually. So I think that averages itself out.
Yeah, so as the online gaming is new and brick and mortar has changed a little bit, I guess the question, are the margins better, the profit margins better on the online gaming than it is in a brick and mortar store because people are able to pay online through those sales or no?
The profit margin is approximately equal. What we've seen in all of the jurisdictions and our enabling legislation talks about mirroring Kentucky, Georgia, and Virginia, and all 3 of them sell Powerball and Mega Millions, sell all their products online. What you see is that sales at retail have gone up because you're introducing new players to our products. So it's primarily the new player that we're attracting as opposed to the existing player who's still going to stop and play their tickets at their favorite store.
Yeah, I couldn't help but watch as many other people did around Christmas Eve, was hoping to get, my kids were hoping to get a Powerball winner. And I guess the question my kids asked me, and I'll ask you, when was the last time someone in Tennessee won a Powerball?
Well, last weekend we had someone win $2 million in Powerball, so it depends on your definition of a win.
No, I'm talking about like a jackpot Powerball. Just like I don't know that it won. We tried to do a Google search to find out, and I wondered if you might know off the top of your head. It's okay if you don't.
But I remember the largest Powerball winner was $528 million in Covington. And we've had a couple since then, but let me get you the exact number. I think we've had in the teens number of Powerball jackpot winners, but I'll get you the exact number and where they were and when they were.
Thank you. My children would love to know. Thank you.
But it
All right.
wasn't your child.
Yeah. All right. Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish I was related to that family in Covington, but no relation over there in West Tennessee. It's my understanding that there are 165 full-time positions within the lottery. Is that correct?
That's close.
Okay, of those positions, do you have any employees that fill more than one position?
Mr. Davis has been both the CFO and the CIO.
Well, so if there's 165 positions, how many employees does the lottery have then? Let me ask it that way.
We normally have between 155 and 165. It just depends on the vacancies at any given time.
Are all of those employees full-time employees, or do you have some part-time?
We have, I think, 2 part-time weekend computer operators, because our computer operation does drawings very late at night on Saturday night.
So would that be considered in part of the 165 positions?
I don't think so.
They are included in terms of the authorized positions, but as Rebecca mentioned, they are part-time staff that occasionally go in and out in terms of covering our draws.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Good to see y'all this morning. Thank you for being here. I have a question concerning maybe 2 questions concerning the multi-jurisdictional games partnerships. Games played in the multiple states like Powerball are governed by the Multi-State Lottery Association. Recently, a partnership between the Multi-State Lottery Association and the NFL was announced for a tentatively titled X and O game. So question for that is, can you provide more details about this project and if there are other partnerships that the lottery is pursuing?
Well, the lottery itself has partnerships across the state of Tennessee with almost all of the major universities. So we have a partnership with the University of Tennessee, the University of Memphis, UT Chattanooga, MTSU, et cetera. So we do sports sponsorships across the state of Tennessee with our major colleges and universities. We do a similar kind of a partnership with the Predators and with the Grizzlies. And then in terms of the multi-jurisdictional games, Muscle, or the Multi-State Lottery Association, and Powerball has had a partnership with NASCAR for 3 or 4 years, where there is a Powerball participant who receives $1 million in a drawing in the final race at NASCAR each year. Tennessee has had 1 finalist in the 3 or 4 years that we've done there. There are 4 finalists that go to the final race. The Powerball X's and O's is an NFL project that we've been working on for about 5 years, and we think it will come to fruition in August, and will go on sale in August.
Okay. So, and you kind of hit the other one to replicate this at the collegiate level. So you said you've partnership with many of the colleges, correct?
We do sports sponsorships. We don't have games with any of the universities. We have done an instant game with the Titans, and this will be the first drawing style game, I believe, that's been done with any of the professional teams across the country.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. President Paul, thank you very much for your work. We've known each other a long time. Andy, thank you very much for your work as well. I can answer one of the questions that Chairman Williams had. It's not the Powerball of Mega Millions. We actually had a $60+ million winner here in the legislature. Tina Still, if some of the veteran members will remember, Tina Still was at LA for Senator Overby and other folks. She started when the building was built. She was here forever. When they still had a switchboard to answer the phone, she was here. But Tina and her son won $60 million plus. She passed away a few years back, but she was one of those lucky winners. I just want to go back and give my colleagues a little bit of a history lesson. When we enacted the lottery and the enabling legislation went forth 22 years ago, it was important to the legislature at that time that we bank that first year of lottery proceeds. And as we're talking about the $33 billion that has come in over the 22-year history of that, we bank those first year proceeds, lottery education dollars, toward higher ed scholarships at the time, which has enabled us to do everything that we've done in these higher ed scholarships since then. And it continues to be a bank. And as we heard earlier, we have plateaued, but we had the longest running increases of any lottery in the world in terms of year after year after year after year, well into the teens. and did have hit a plateau, which is normal for lotteries. There is I don't want to say saturation point, but there is a ceiling to what lotteries have done historically throughout the world. So I certainly want to recognize that. And I want to thank you as you promote the lottery. You're also promoting our teachers across the state of Tennessee and all of our districts, all of our regions. There's exceptional teachers that are recognized by the lottery in all of our districts. So as you have the goodwill advertisements that you do, you also give back in that way. And you guys support minor league baseball, which is near and dear to me too. So thank you very much. Not a question, just some comments, a little history lesson. Thank you, Chairman and members.
All right. Thank you. And President Powell, let me ask a question. What percentage of gross proceeds or revenue from the lottery actually goes to education? Once you pay out prizes, administration, what percentage actually goes to education?
Well, the biggest percentage is prizes, and that's in the 60% plus range. To education, we're somewhere between 24 and 25% on average.
That's correct.
All right. Members, I have no one else on the list. So President Paul, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Andy, thank you as well. We appreciate your presentation and answering our questions. Thank you.
Our Educator of the Week program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. That brings us to the Sports Wagering Council, and I do see Director Thomas making her way to the front. Director Thomas, as you get situated there, just a reminder, we will control the microphones up here. So once you see the red light come on, you will be ready to begin. And if you will, just start with an introduction of yourself and who you have with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. And I like that microphone improvement because I never could figure it out before. Mary Beth Thomas, Executive Director of the Sports Wagering Council. I have with me Stephanie Maxwell, our Deputy Director and General Counsel. Jacqueline Harding, our Director of Business Operations and Administration, Tara Rika Murdoch, our Chief Compliance Officer, Grant Crossthwaite, our Chief Fiscal Officer, and Randy Bechtel, our Chief Investigations and Sports Integrity Officer. And we also have Nathan Shaver here. And come on up here. Nathan is our Director of Fantasy Sports. So big team here today, just in case y'all have any great questions for everybody. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all, and I made some notes so that I wouldn't forget anything important as I'm here today. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a refresher or history lesson about the Sports Wagering Council, just to kind of give you a quick overview of our structure and what we've focused on the past several years when we've been before you to tell you about our progress. So our council, our governing body, is appointed 2/3 by the legislature, 1/3 by the governor. So the speaker and the lieutenant governor appoint 3 each, and the governor appoints 3. And then they in turn hire our staff. We then have 20 staff members who are responsible for the day-to-day work and the enforcement of the Sports Gaming Act and the Fantasy Sports Act. And this 20-person team is responsible for all of the regulatory functions related to what is now a $6 billion a year sports betting industry in Tennessee. So $6 billion a year is wagered in Tennessee alone. So our work includes, and these are kind of broad categories here, but the annual licensure of our sports betting operators, the annual licensure of our fantasy operators, registration of 59 vendors that provide support services. We collect privilege taxes on a monthly basis from sports books. And since legalization, we've collected $412 million that goes straight to the state of Tennessee. We don't take any of that money for our budget. We provide a resource for players who have a problem or concern with a platform or who want to exclude themselves and not be able to access a sports book and gamble. We perform extensive technical, operational, and financial audits on our sports betting platforms to ensure compliance. Last fiscal year, we opened and resolved 347 compliance matters, and this fiscal year, we've opened 305 compliance matters to date, so almost doubling what we did last year. We're on track for that. We investigate underage wagering, wagering by prohibited players, such as athletes, fraud, and suspicious wagering activity. We also investigate illegal operators and take action to remove them from our state. Last year, we opened 609 investigations, and this year to date, we've opened 371 halfway through the year. In short, we continuously work to create the safest regulatory environment that we can. When I first appeared before you all in 2022, brand new, we were just trying to keep the licensing process rolling. And we spent a lot of time making sure that we had all of the operators that wanted to be licensed. There's an extensive vetting process that takes quite a bit of time and resources. And so that was really year one. And then year two, we turned to our compliance work and making sure that we were not just licensing, but we were checking for compliance with the Sports Gaming Act. You all passed a great law that has a lot of consumer protections in it and a lot of things that operators who want to be in our state have to comply with. And so it's not just that we say, here's the law, or we're going to create some more rules for you to go comply with. We have to go make sure that they are complying through our audit process and through our third-party vendors that we use for operational and security assessments and things like that. And of course, as y'all know, the Comptroller's Office audits us to make sure that we are, using the right processes and procedures and that we have the right internal controls in place to make sure we're doing our job. So that was really the next couple of years. Then we got into full force on illegal sports books because they are really dangerous. And they are what I think is causing a huge problem with, problem gambling. I speak frequently with Dr. Whalen at the Memphis Gambling Clinic, and he speaks about how, it's not our licensed sports books that people are coming into the clinic and saying, hey, I have a problem with this one or that one. It's the offshore books because they're able to access them. They can't self-exclude. They extend credit. They take credit cards, which of course our law does not allow. And I mean, even more terrifying, they don't verify age and identity all the way so children can get on and gamble. The times that they do use identity verification is when you want to withdraw money. At that point, then they want you to send in your bank statement and your, social security number, blood sample, not really, but whatever. So that is, we have really ramped up our efforts on that. And Randy Bechtel, our our Chief Investigations Officer and Sports Integrity Officer, Randy has a new title. And I'm really, it's a wonderful title that I have botched now. And so I apologize for that. So anyway, Randy has led the team in figuring out creative ways to kind of attack this problem. And that means being in constant contact with our law enforcement partners and prosecution and making sure that we have, any angle that we can take as far as issuing subpoenas and even taking depositions of people who have information, then going as far as issuing cease and desist letters and assessing fines and turning those fines into judgments that we can one day hopefully attach against assets that they might have in the United States so they don't want to be here doing business and lose money. I think our efforts are in this illegal space are really paying off slowly but surely. Last year, we served, as I mentioned, 14 cease and desist orders to illegal sports books. And this year to date, we've served 14 more. We've had 7 leave the state, including one of the largest offshore books. Excuse me. And like I said, we're pursuing enforcement of the remaining ones through every available means. And I have to also give gratitude to General Scrimetti and his office for helping us with that final step of going to Chancery Court and getting a judgment that can be enforced as a judgment lien when we have an opportunity. We've also pursued ways of working to, with our payment processors and Google and YouTube and Apple with the App Store and making sure that they are able to identify illegal actors and take those down. And we've had success with getting them to take down illegal advertisements. So a lot of progress there. And finally, although of course I don't want to get into details about this, but we are also in active litigation with the largest prediction market operator, Kalshi. They say they are the largest operator in the United States for prediction markets. It's currently pending in the district court, middle district, federal court, and that litigation was initiated after our office served cease and desist orders on Kalshi and 2 other prediction markets, Polymarket and Crypto. So we will see what happens with that. I'm grateful again for the AG's office and their excellent work in that case. So all of this leads me to the reason that I'm here to talk about our budget request for the upcoming year. And I'd like to first show you a little bit about our licensure fees and our funding, and then I'll get to my ask. As I mentioned, we do not use any privilege tax revenue for our operations. Our funding comes from licensure fees, and every year we've collected more licensure fees than our spending authority, and we've spent less money than our spending authority, about 25% less. Funds that we don't use in our budget minus a 10% reserve go to the Tennessee Promise. So anything that we collect more than we need, we send over to the Tennessee Promise. Go ahead and turn that. So this shows you the last 2 years and our estimate for this next year of our revenue and expenses. You can see that we have collected in excess of our spending authority, and our expenses, as I mentioned, are below our spending authority. We estimate that for next year, we'll collect about 8.2 million. And our budget that was in the governor's budget is 7 million. So our fees, our funding comes from licensure fees, from operators, vendor registration fees, fantasy sports operator licensure fees, and a small portion of the fantasy sports fund that comes from the fantasy privilege tax that's collected by the Department of Revenue. We also have revenue from fines that we've assessed, but we don't want a budget to rely on fines. That's just, we would like to not have to fine anybody. So turning now to our ask, we have asked for 4 additional positions to continue the work that we're doing. And first, I want to note that we're not asking for any extra money or spending authority. We're just asking to move some of our operational funding to salaries and benefits. And I've included in this chart our budget for last year and the categories, our line item expenses, and then how we have proposed reallocating those expenses to cover that payroll. And you can see the major part that we reduced is third-party contracts. When we first started, we thought that we might need a lot more significant technology types of contracts, but we've found that, for better or for worse, our work is really more hands-on. It's not something that we can automate because it requires our smart team to actually learn and understand the issues and work on solving problems, and they're all different every day. So we do have some technology. We have a really great system called Caseware that we use, and I know several other state agencies use to track our compliance and investigations work, and that's very helpful, but it's not very expensive with our self-exclusion software. So we're confident that we can keep those technology expenses down, and that's really where the large chunk of this comes in. So our request is that we have 4 additional positions. Those would be 2 attorneys, 1 compliance position, and 1 internal auditor. And the internal auditor is something that was recommended by the executive branch audit position. Every agency should have an internal auditor to make sure we're doing all the right things, but we did have a clean audit report, so we're good for now. Anyway, so I will turn now to, even though you can skip that one, that's our team, but we're mostly here. So while our agency's role is regulatory in nature and not one of, promoting gambling or promoting sports betting, we do, as I mentioned, collect privilege taxes. And so we see a lot of what's coming into the state. And I also believe that as we continue to grow our compliance work and our work with eradicating illegal books, that will continue to generate more privilege tax revenue because they'll be coming to the licensed operators and not illegal ones. So I know everyone is always interested in privilege taxes, and this is the information that I shared with the State Funding Board in November when we were asked to present in their revenue estimating meeting. And you can see, this shows you the total wagers in Tennessee year by year and the privilege tax collected. We've had an average growth rate of 18% historically, and we estimated 5% moving forward just because we could level out to, or we could have more with the illegal markets going away. I should also note, that in December and January, we actually saw a dip year over year. Almost 6% in December and about 2% in January. And I think that is because of the proliferation of the prediction markets advertising. And if you watch the Super Bowl, you could see that all of those ads were just as present as our licensed sports books. So time will tell and litigation will tell on that, what will happen. But anyway, it is still a great revenue source for the state. So that is all I have prepared, and happy to answer any questions. I'm sure y'all don't have any.
All right. Thank you very much. And we do have some folks on the list to
I
ask some
thought.
questions. So let's go to Chairman Williams first. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director Thomas, for being here, and appreciate the hard work that you're doing. I just had a simple question first about privilege tax. I wondered if you could kind of give us the lay of the land of the other states as it relates to their privilege tax. Of course, as your chart shows there, we're at 1.85%. How do we compare to other states? Are we in the middle, or are we low, or are we high? Could you tell us?
Well, I guess every state taxes differently. That's not a great answer. They all tax things differently. Some tax on revenue, and they don't allow promotional activity to be included, or they do allow it to be excluded, which really makes a difference in how much revenue is taxed. I will say, when I spoke to the State Funding Board, we did a little bit of analysis on where our state ranks. If you look at it on a per capita basis and taxes collected, and we were like number 10. So that was, I think our tax structure is working well. As far as the percentage of taxes, we are unique in that we tax by handle tax. So we're more of a gross receipts tax instead of a revenue tax. And the benefit to the state on that is that no matter what happens with the ebbs and flows of the sports betting market, if the sports book takes in wagers, we get a cut of that as privilege tax. Whereas, if a sports book doesn't manage or balance its risk so that it's making a profit, then if we were taxing revenue like some other states, we wouldn't get much privilege tax. And that's happened several months in other states where they haven't had a success story with their taxes coming in.
So it's your view, I guess, based upon your discussion with the funding board, that the rate at which we're taxed through the privilege tax and what those revenues generate is where it needs to be, or is there room for improvement for the citizens of the state?
Well, that is a tough question. And I will say that is absolutely a policy decision for y'all. I'll enforce whatever you all think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I think our structure is working well. I'll say that. I think the way it's structured is great.
So if we, of course, you're you're exactly right. It's the will of this body to change it. We can. I guess the question is do I've become all aware of the challenges with addiction to particularly younger generation of folks as it relates to online gambling because it's so easy. Really, in order to do. I did get an opportunity in one of the budget hearings with the F&A commissioner. They sent me a report about what we're doing in the space. I guess that percentage that we're setting aside for addiction treatment or counseling services, how does that compare to other states? Is it paid based upon the gross receipts, or is it paid upon as a part or a percentage of our privilege tax?
And I've moved to the next slide, which shows all of that for you all. So the Department of Mental Health receives 5% of the privilege tax collected. So our tax rate is 1.85% of all gross wagers, and they receive then 5% of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see the numbers in the third column there.
Yeah, I didn't read the Memphis data. I did read the ETSU, I think, data surrounding that. I guess the question is are we looking for a place in Middle Tennessee in order to have these services? I think it's really important that we do. For the members, and I read the report, those 395 people that participated at ETSU, their average annual gambling was around $10,420. After treatment, it was $240 was the average. To give you an idea, that's a lot of money. Our young individuals are gambling in this open space. It's a problem that I think we're going to only continue to see grow because of the access there. And so my fear is that we're getting services to folks that might need them through counseling in Upper East Tennessee or in West Tennessee, but maybe there's a void of that need, and whether or not we look at where those addiction problems, it could be that a population base in Middle Tennessee would be far greater of the need than it would be in one of those two areas.
No, I think those are really great thoughts. And I'll tell you a couple of things that might give you some comfort on it. Although this is not my area, I do speak with the Department of Mental Health and Dr. Whalen quite a bit. Dr. Whalen is the director of the Memphis Gambling Clinic, and he has been responsible for growing that treatment practice throughout the state. And yes, you're right, ETSU has an arm. And then they were working on a location for in-person treatment in Tennessee. And for whatever reason, it did not move forward. But they do have telehealth available, and they also can connect you with a provider that will be in the middle district area. I think that Dr. Whalen, especially, he is nationally known as somebody who is the go-to for treatment issues. And so we have a real resource in him. And I think the more he can do, and the more, mental health, more he partners with mental health to build out more of this is great for our state.
Finally, thank you, Chairman, for your patience. But finally, you mentioned earlier that you have the ability for someone to contact your office to preclude them from being able to have access to these sports books in our state. I guess my question is there a legal remedy for a parent, a loved one, someone else who could get a court order to have someone precluded from that in the instance that they are found to have a problem? Is there a mechanism by which to do that? So you might be able to do it in a lot of cases. These folks have family members who are end up being on the hook for their debts, I guess you could say. And so if they're the ones paying, could they go to a court and have them removed from those?
Well, I mean, of course, if we received a court order ordering our office to put somebody on the self-exclusion list, we would comply with that. We have not seen that happen yet. There's not a specific mechanism for it, but I guess it could be analyzed the same way that you could maybe like a conservatorship type of situation where somebody is unable to act for themselves. And so you have to go and get the court to order a particular, cause of action.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Gary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for being here. You were very detailed in your presentation, and I appreciate that. My question deals with probably something you didn't anticipate, or at least when the sports wagering bill came through, I was a wholeheartedly supporter of this piece of legislation because I knew folks would be doing this. Now, I have zero ability to predict an outcome to then return any type of return on that. So I have actually never waged one time in the sports gaming world, even though I wanted to make sure if this was available that we could capture the tax dollars for this purpose. That's one of the biggest reasons why I supported it. So with now companies and artificial intelligence and everything that's out there, you mentioned Kalshi. I think, I'm not sure how to pronounce that's now in the prediction business, which again, I have negative experience on because I don't have any prediction abilities to make sure how an outcome would be in anything I bet on. And the concern is now these prediction models can actually be a bad actor and make an outcome happen that they're actually betting on to predict and then make money on that. So I was very pleased to hear you say what you're doing in the enforcement arena for that. Now, it's my understanding that you or your team, when some of your lawyers have issued a cease and desist order to the Kalshi company that's a New York-based company, and I believe there's some litigation that's continuing that, and they've issued some sort of temporary restraining order allowing them to still operate here. You requested that they not be able to, but that, of course, was not issued in that state. Now, is that here or is that in the federal courts in New York? Where does that case?
It's in the Middle District Federal Court.
Okay, so it's here.
Yes.
And so now they can still operate. So my question kind of is around the prediction model companies. You mentioned that in your intro, but are we seeing more of this here? And if so, you said how large of a problem that we're seeing with bad actors, because your graphic that you had up there of your 3 duties, it seems like now possibly one of them is becoming the enforcement and ridding the bad actors here in the state. So could you elaborate just a little bit on those issues that you're now facing?
Yes, that's a great question. And I love talking about that because it is near and dear to my heart too, because I do think that all of the illegal operators or unlicensed operators, they are the biggest threat to our state. So the American Gaming Association, just one statistic, they say that probably 40% of sports betting across the country is done on illegal offshore books. Now, on the prediction market space, they are still fairly new, so we don't have as much data to be able to give, a statistic. But I will tell you, it was reported, I think in October, that there was 1 week that Kalshi had 50 billion in trades in 1 week. And 90% of it, I think, some percentage close to that was on sports betting.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, and this may be beyond where we are, since this is sort of a new result of this space. What mechanisms here do we have to shut these folks down? I mean, you mentioned a judgment lien, which means, these are fancy folks. They've got high sophisticated lawyers. You get a judgment lien against an LLC that has no assets, or they're leveraged out of the hill. You really have nothing to go after because there's no assets there for the judgment lien to attach to. And so what mechanisms do you have, or what mechanisms could we have to make that enforcement better?
Yes, that's a
If at
great
all.
question. And it is really difficult. And I would say the first goal, collecting a judgment would be great, but it's really more of a means to an end on getting them to leave our state. So we have taken the approach of, okay, can we identify if this illegal sports book is sending out fancy mailers, or they have a call center, or they have whatever, where they are actually in the United States, and we can then find them. Maybe they have an account they've just been paid by that illegal sports book. Well, if we can assert a judgment lien against that, then they're not going to want to do business with this shady offshore book where they can't get paid because their money's been attached. So that's one avenue. We have thought, and this really would be, this is like a pie in the sky dream, but we would like to have some mechanism to shut down certain domains. So, there are a lot of different steps that websites go through in order to appear before a person. And I am not the right person to explain that, but I know that there are ways that law enforcement can shut down websites. And if we had the ability with some checks and balances in it to take action to actually shut down a website that we know is illegal, that would be amazing. Maybe one day.
Well, Director, thank you very much, and your team. You've done a great job. I really, really appreciate you. Mr. Chairman, those are all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Vice Chairman Gillespie. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Thomas, thank you so much for being here. And Randy, we know each other as well. Thank you for being here, and the rest of the team. I just wanted to give a kudos to this department. I carried the legislation to make them independent a couple of years ago, and I think they're just doing so well. And just got to give a plug to one of their team members that's not here today. One of my best friends, Dan, is in their investigative division and is currently on a 1-year-long deployment in the United States Coast Guard Reserve away from his family. And I know they're missing him, and I just had to give him a plug and had to give you all a plug as well. So thank you all so much for everything y'all do.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Under the privilege tax, betting privilege tax, just curious about school construction, estimate 27, 28, 96 million. Who determines, I guess, what schools receive those dollars?
It's not us. I could tell you that. But under the legislation, the School Freedom Choice Act, and I'm sorry, I probably botched the name of that, but there is a whole process, I believe, about how that is determined, I think.
Through the Department of Education? Is that what you?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, okay. Local governments. Estimates then is 18 million. Who determines how those dollars are distributed, appropriated?
And I'm sorry to say I don't know twice, but we collect the money and make sure it's accurate. Then we send it over to the Department of Revenue and the treasurer, and they make sure that it's they distribute it to those buckets.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no one else on the list. I do now. Chairman Hall, you're recognized, sir.
Sorry to delays, Chairman. Thanks for your indulgence. I'm thinking some of the local government distributions may be on a per capita basis. I think that when we had some of those early discussions, so not to answer your question, Representative Miller, but I think my mind's going back to that. Quick question on I'm hearing all the ins and outs, goods, bads, and uglies of what we're going on. Is there a national association that you belong to or that someone in Tennessee belongs to, and best practices for organizations like ours, like yours? Talk a little bit about that. Are organizations like ours, yours, in all 50 states? And thank you.
Yes, thank you. And yes, since sports betting became legalized by the states and continue to be legalized, several organizations were formed, and our office has chosen to really devote our time to the North American Gaming Regulators Association. And I'm currently serving as its vice president, and Randy is currently serving as the Eastern Regional Director, which includes our state. We need to rename it the Southern Eastern. But anyway, it is a great organization. It has it's really an educational and best practices sharing organization. It has a conference every year. And other than that, it has a lot of webinars that are designed to connect regulators and help everyone share resources and ideas about how to tackle all of these issues. So yes, thank you for the question. Y'all all come to our conference.
All right, thank you. I have no one else on the list. Thank you very much, Director Thomas. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so
All right, that brings us to the Attorney General and Reporter. And I do not see General Skermetti just yet, but he, I'm sure, is going to be making his way here at any moment. Without objection, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We're in recess. All right, we are back in session at this time. Or we are back from recess. We're still out of session. I'm going to call up at this time. I saw our Attorney General walk into the room, so I'll ask him and his staff to please make their way up to the front. And just as a reminder, we will control the microphones up here. So once you see the red light come on, you're ready to go. So please begin by introductions and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my pleasure to be here, my privilege to serve as Tennessee's Attorney General. And I'm grateful to be able to share some of my staff here. We got a great team at the office. My Chief Deputy Attorney General, Lacey Mace, is to my immediate right. And to her right is Kelly Smith, my COO. Just to very briefly talk about a few things that we've been up to. The number one point I want to emphasize for this committee is we brought in approximately 3 times as much money as we cost the state. We brought in approximately $233 million. That's with expenditures of under $73 million. So we're very proud of that, and we endeavor to continue to be a good resource for the state. It's been a very busy year. One thing I want to particularly highlight is the Civil Rights Enforcement Division. Last year, you moved Civil Rights Enforcement Authority over to my office. We have been working hard to stand up that division. We have been hiring. We have been working on processes. We've received about 858 complaints since July 1st. Evaluating those so far, we've identified 134 that are within the jurisdiction of the division. 407 are not within the division's jurisdiction. A lot of people call for a variety of reasons. But we've got attorneys, we've got investigators, we've got intake specialists who are working hard on these cases. I look forward to reporting more on that, but that has been a significant point of emphasis for us. And we want to make sure we're doing right by the state. As I think many of you are aware, we are very busy representing the state. I'm going to talk about a few cases briefly, but I want to emphasize before that, most of the work that we do, the overwhelming majority of the work that we do, you will never hear about unless we mess it up. But it's really important. It's just fundamental legal work. The state is a huge organization. There's all sorts of litigation and representation that happens. So we have tax attorneys, we have employment attorneys, we have folks working on bankruptcies, we have people doing collections work. There's a wide variety of important, complex legal activity that doesn't necessarily make the papers. But at any given time, we have well north of 10,000 matters open in the office and a huge team of attorneys working really hard to make Tennessee proud. But some of the stuff we do does get a lot of attention. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our really significant win in the United States Supreme Court defending SB1, HB1. That is a bipartisan supermajority passed bill dealing with gender transition treatments for minors. And we were sued by a variety of groups and the U.S. Department of Justice in what was probably the biggest case of the last Supreme Court term. We won. I'm very proud of the work that my team did on that for the state. And it really indicates, how important it is. When you come here as the elected representatives of the people of Tennessee, your job is to make decisions about what the policy of the state is. And our job in the AG's office is not to second guess you or decide we know better about what the policies are. It's to represent you in court, to represent the state in court so that the state can be maximally self-governing. We know we're not always going to agree about the political stuff. And there are times when the courts do need to step in. There are constitutional guardrails to what you can do. But we view our role as making sure you have the maximum flexibility. We'll make every argument we can to keep Tennessee as self-governing as possible so that the people, through their representatives, are making as many decisions as they can about the state. So in the same vein, we recently had my Solicitor General, Matt Rice, up in Cincinnati at the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit, defending the age verification law for social media in the NetChoice case. We're waiting to hear about that. We have litigation dealing with the education savings accounts and education freedom scholarships that's ongoing. We're litigating the medical necessity exception to the state's abortion law. You had recently addressed that legislatively, and there's ongoing litigation there. We're litigating the deployment of the National Guard in Shelby County. That argument is coming up. We have had a number of cases involving the state's execution protocol, and that litigation is also ongoing. We've had a number of big wins in that area, but that's a constant source of court activity. And just this week, we have arguments in the Tennessee Supreme Court and the Airport Authority and the municipal and metro council size legislation. So we'll get some clarity there. We also have enforcement authority under the consumer protection law, under the antitrust law, several other laws. So I want to talk briefly about a few of the big cases we have there. We have sued Meta, the largest social media company in the world, over the impact of its social media products on the mental health of kids. There's a lot of evidence out there about this. It's why you passed the age verification law last year. So we have a separate consumer protection suit set to go to trial a little bit later this year. We've been working hard on that. We sued Roblox, which is a platform for, it's basically a kid's game, but adults are in it. And there was a real problem with child predators coming in and exploiting kids on there. And the company was telling parents, this is the safest place on the internet. There's no problems here. They weren't telling the truth about that. So we're suing them. In a totally different vein, we had a settlement recently with Metropolis Parking. It's a parking company we received hundreds of complaints about. We got a great settlement where they are refunding money to all the people who were wronged. They're paying some penalties, and they're reforming their processes so that people will know how much they're going to pay when they go into a parking lot. There's a clear opportunity for people to contest it. Before, people would call and not get an answer. Now there has to be a person on the other end of the line to help resolve problems. So we're really happy that we're able to put Tennesseans in a position where they can park without having to worry about what the charges are going to be, or worse, where they're not going to park and still get charged for parking. We just got a settlement in a couple of our generic pharmaceutical price fixing cases. This has been a years-long ongoing effort. There was a big conspiracy among generic drug companies to raise prices on their drugs for people. We're getting compensation for folks who are overcharged, and they're reforming their practices so that they're not going to do that anymore. Opioids is something the office is very proud of. We've had a lot of lawyers work really hard on those cases. We're coming into the tail end of that. Most of the big cases have settled. Thanks to the Opioid Abatement Trust Fund, most of the money that we're getting for Tennessee is going directly back towards combating the opioid problem. But there's still some ongoing litigation there. The Center for Reproductive Health is a Nashville fertility clinic, or was a Nashville fertility clinic, that had severe problems. Patients were being ripped off. They were being lied to. There were problems with the systems for preserving genetic material. And so we had to step in a consumer protection case, get a receiver appointed, and really try to help these people who've been put through the ringer. That's also ongoing. Another thing that's coming up for trial later this year is Ticketmaster Live Nation. We're part of a big multi-state effort. We've been working with the Department of Justice as well. It's a bipartisan thing. We started with the Biden administration, carried over into the Trump administration. Because the music industry is particularly important to Tennessee, this case is particularly important to us. And then finally, we did send cease and desist letters to about 40 sweepstakes casinos that were illegally operating online in Tennessee. They've all ceased operation in Tennessee, so we're proud that we're able to do that. We had heard from some people about problem gamblers who didn't have the protections that come from the very regulated gaming system that we have under our laws, being put at real risk by this. So I'm glad we were able to shut that down. And that's just a little bit of what we do, but I'm very happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, from you and your committee.
All right, General. Thank you very much again for being here for your opening statements and presentation. I'll begin and kick us off here with a couple of questions. Just looking at your budget and some reserve growth, if in just a little bit of context for some of my questions, just looking at recurring state appropriations, it looks like it's increased about 30 million since fiscal year 20. Full-time employees has grown from 353 to 401, and then the litigation settlement reserve has grown. It looks like about 30 million since fiscal year 20. So let's talk about vacancies first. So it looks like 63 vacancies. It looks like 6 maybe have been vacant for 12 months or longer. Can you talk a little bit about the vacancy?
Certainly. First of all, a lot of the vacancies are a result of the transition from the Human Rights Commission, moving that authority to my office. We've got about 12 of those spots filled. We're still trying to calibrate exactly how much we're going to need in terms of personnel to effectively and efficiently enforce those laws. So, that's a moving target right there. With respect to the long-term vacancies, Kelly, I believe those are all ID revenue positions. Is that correct?
They are, except one is CAD.
Mr. Chairman, one of those has been filled in our criminal appeals division, and the other 5 are all ID revenue.
All right, let's talk about the reserve fund. So 30 million, again, since since fiscal year 20, actually. What do you contribute to that growth?
So I'll let Kelly speak more to this, but just as a general matter, we try to keep between 3 and 5 years worth of reserve funding in there, and we're actually toward the bottom end of that at the moment. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think opioids is the main source of that revenue. And as the general said, fortunately, a lot of money has come in, but unfortunately, the majority of it has been received. So we don't anticipate any large settlements like that in the immediate future.
A substantial amount of our reserve too is the Juul settlement, which is going to the Department of Health, but it's taken a while to get the logistics of that worked out. So I think that's 13 million that's dedicated to go over to health over the next few years.
And what's the primary use of that reserve fund, of the settlement reserve?
It pays litigation expenses, and there are a number of positions that are funded out of the reserve, consumer protection positions, some of the senior leadership positions. Are there any others?
All right, next on this, thank you all. The next person on the list is Vice Chairman Gillespie. You're recognized.
Thank you so much, Chairman. General, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to throw some accolades out to your entire office. First, I want to recognize your Chief of Staff sitting behind you, Chris Tudor, great Shelby Countyan. And secondly, just thank y'all. If the committee doesn't know, y'all are your office is an excellent sounding board, especially when it comes to national or even international laws and comparison. And y'all are working with me and have been working with me since the summer on a robocall piece of legislation. And I just wanted to say thank you all to your office for being so flexible with me. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I'm blessed with a phenomenal team. Tennessee is blessed with a phenomenal team here, and we really hate robocalls. So we're happy to work with everybody, but we're particularly happy to help with that.
All right, thank you. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Generals Committee. I just had a question about one of the cases you described. I know it's still an open case regarding the Center for Reproductive Health. I guess I have a piece of legislation this year which would license facilities like this and practitioners. I guess my question to you would be, if there were licensure, would it have been easier for you to intervene, or the Department of Health to intervene in the instance where the laboratory was, in this case, completely abandoned? Or would have that been better or easier for you to come in through the Department of Health and their licensure in an effort where this physician just decided to close the door to his practice and shut out all of his patients?
I will let Lacey give a more fulsome answer, because she was actually over there when the tanks were about to thaw out. I mean, it was a bad situation. My suspicion is if there was licensure, we never would have had to do this case.
Is it on? Okay. I think in theory that would be helpful. Of course, those would have run on 2 different tracks. So the Department of Health would have been responsible for regulating the license aspect of it, and we are responsible for protecting the consumers. But I think having a clearer track on the licensure side of things certainly would have been helpful.
Do you think it's necessary to have a license of a laboratory and a license for the practicing physician, or either one? I guess, would that help? I recognize you're not in the Department of Health.
Yeah.
Well,
can you let me think about that?
Yeah. Well, the interesting part is those patients had embryos frozen there that they had gone at great expense and heartache in order to achieve. And had it not been for your hard work and diligence so quickly to get an injunction to get in there and to try to save those embryos, then it would have been a completely different story to hundreds of families across the state. So I appreciate your hard work there. I know it's a difficult one, very personal, really, to those people, those families there that you're trying to do. I just think it's important for us, sometimes a little licensure or a little oversight is a good thing. In this case, there was none.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, you all. You mentioned in your statements about casinos operating online illegally in the state of Tennessee, that you shut them down. How many did you shut down, and how did you shut them down?
So there were approximately 40 that we had identified, and we sent them cease and desist letters, just saying you're acting outside the scope of the law in Tennessee, so stop.
And that's exactly because it's unconstitutional. And that's all it took for them to just discontinue their activities?
I was surprised too, sir. I think a lot of them are hoping that eventually they will be able to get licensed, so they wanted to make sure they were complying. That's my suspicion. But yeah, we're often very effective, but usually it takes more than a letter.
You've just said, I think they are probably thinking eventually they will get licenses.
I think they want to. I have no position as to whether it should be legal or not. That's a decision for the General Assembly to make.
So now that it's unconstitutional, that means we would have to amend our constitution to legalize it.
I would have to do a deep dive to make sure that that's what the answer is. We can get you an answer on that.
If I may provide a little bit additional explanation, in our letter to all of these companies, we actually were citing to our just illegal gambling and illegal lottery statutes. And just another, I think, just another point about something that we do in our office quite effectively. This was actually more of a multi-state effort. So these online casinos were operating in multiple states illegally. And so we were able to work with other states who were kind of doing the same thing. And that can really act as a hammer in a lot of these cases when they realize that the states are kind of coming around them to.
But those states where it's legal, gaming, casinos, it's okay for them to operate probably in those states.
Not in those states, it is not, no. And so we were
okay.
all sending similar cease and desist
Okay,
letters,
thank
and they were complying.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, next question. Now that the Human Rights Commission is under your umbrella control, you've made some opening statements about where you were, and could you kind of go over that again?
Yes, sir. So the Human Rights Commission came over. We received a high volume of complaints. I think under the law, people had to refile. They were given an opportunity to refile. So we've received about 858 complaints. That was the last number I checked. Since July 1st, we've got intake specialists, investigators, attorneys all looking at these. 134 of them have been identified as within the jurisdiction of the Civil Rights Enforcement Division. 407 are not. So we get a lot of complaints that for whatever reason just don't fall inside the statute. We are looking at those. We got some promising cases. We got some investigations ongoing. We're still looking at hiring additional people. And, it's a significant thing. I mean, we recognize it's a big change. There was a very complicated administrative process with the Human Rights Commission. We're setting this up to be a lot more streamlined so that there's quicker resolution. Some of the cases under the old system lasted 7 or 8 years. Some of the files that we saw were ancient. And that's no good for victims, and that's no good for the people who are accused, whether it's businesses or residences or whatever. So, it's still pretty new. We've got a team in place. We're working on growing the team. And I expect that this time next year, we'll have a much more substantial report. But we're taking this very seriously. And, we recognize the significance of these laws and the need to enforce them well.
You did mention that there will be a report at some point to the General Assembly.
We're happy to provide a report, absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, last question in reference to legislative request for Attorney General's opinion. How is that? Is that pretty much the same that it's always been?
So our numbers are up a little bit on Attorney General opinions. There are a few obstacles to putting them out. Sometimes there's ongoing litigation, and so we're not able to take a position. Sometimes there are other ethical or statutory impediments to it. So I know, we receive a number of requests. We do our best to answer them, and it is a significant lift. I mean, when we write one of those opinions, it's potentially going to be used against us 30 or 40 years down the road. So we want to make sure we get everything right in there. I know in the very old days, there was a much higher volume of AG opinion put out. I've talked with prior folks who worked in the office. The quality control just wasn't there. It was a much different world. And so we want to make sure that when we put out those opinions, they are rigorous legal analyses that are going to stand the test of time, and that they're not doing anything that's going to affect future state interests. But the biggest thing is just getting the law right. That is the number one priority. And it's hard. I mean, I know a lot of times you may think, oh, this is a pretty straightforward question. Usually there are a lot more wrinkles involved than you might think at first blush. And when we're going to write a comprehensive analysis, it's going to be comprehensive. So I know we've got one coming out, I think, today. And every one of them gets a good bit of attention. We want to make sure we get it right.
So for example, if I were to put in a request, the turnaround time could be much longer than they've been in the past. Is that what you're saying?
I think they've taken a while for a while. I mean, I think for at least the last 10 years, it's been a pretty significant process. I can't speak to the timing before that.
And then it's actually an opinion of the Attorney General's office. It's not necessarily law or fact, or it's an opinion.
Correct. So there shouldn't be any facts. I mean, if you're talking about applying the law to specific facts, that's outside the scope of a legal opinion, and it's not binding on anybody. A lot of times people will ask because it's easier to get an opinion from us than to litigate for years and try to get a court to say what the answer is. So if it's something where people want to know how to proceed and want clarity, they'll ask for the opinion because it's significantly easier than litigation, but it's still a pretty lengthy process.
Again, as a legislator, I'm in sessions. I got legislation out there. Others got legislation. If I wanted just your opinion, could I get that before the end of the session? I mean,
Well, if you're talking about a formal legal opinion, it takes a while because it binds us. If you have a legal question and just want to say, hey, I'm thinking of this legislation, is this constitutional? That can happen much more quickly. But it won't be a written opinion. It will be advice to a client.
Oh, it would not be a written opinion. Okay. Well, I'll take my chances. I have something coming to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And after some significant court victories, I can see how the value of a cease and desist letter might scare some folks. So congratulations on that. I just want to recognize the consumer protection network that you do, and we've talked about the opioid abatement settlement. I go back to the tobacco settlement that funded large line items in our budget for decades, and now we're in the opioid settlement phase where it's going to fund large items in our budget for the future. I want to recognize, though, the dollars that we have had to spend as a state government because of those challenges that we've had to society. The opioid abatement issue in particular, when you look at our budget for the Department of Corrections growing to well over $1 billion, that used to be $300 million. Now they're in the $1.3, $1.4 billion. The cost to Department of Children's Services in the billions of dollars. And when you start adding all those up, it sure would be nice to stop all that before it ever started. So I appreciate the work that you're doing to protect consumers, protect families, to get these bad actors out there. It's sad that we ever have to have a budget that's as large as it is, but I'm just hoping we can fend off some of these bad things before we get there. So thank you for your work. Go Vols.
It is that day, yes, sir. Go Vols. And I mean, we have an incredible consumer protection team. I do appreciate you recognizing that. They work really hard, and they're very good at what they do.
All right, thank you. Representative Love, you're recognized.
Chairman, thank you for your presentation. Last year, I think you all brought lawsuit against Hispanic serving institutions, and want to find out what is the status of that case. Has it been settled or is it still ongoing?
Thank you,
Or can you talk about it?
So the case is still ongoing. This was a federal law. It was a federal grant system that gave money to universities and colleges with needy students where at least 25% of the student population was Hispanic. But for that 25% of the population being Hispanic provision, the grant money would have been available to the University of Memphis, to the University of, or to MTSU, to ETSU, I believe to Tennessee State University. And so we sued saying this criterion, this quota criteria is unconstitutional. The litigation's ongoing. The administration, I believe, is trying to suspend the grants altogether. Our lawsuit is trying to get access to that grant money for needy students at institutions across Tennessee. So we're still in the midst of that.
You're recognized. Representative Love.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Nashville Airport Authority and Metro Council cases, is this the last step in the ongoing conversation, legal battle, or is this just another? Will it be a step after this one? That's my question that I'm asking.
Representative, so this is at the Tennessee Supreme Court. So this is going to be the highest court that hears these questions. Depending on what they do, they could send the case or either case back down. So it could be the last step. There could be continuing follow-up with more clarity from the Supreme Court. This is a significant milestone, but it's up to the court to say whether there's more to come or not.
Representative Love.
Last one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Well, I will say this as a Nashvilleian. I have particular interest in the Metro Council lawsuit, interest in the airport authority as well, but my father was on the initial Metro Council before it was merged, and often talked about the desire to have a larger council because of the efforts to make sure everybody had representation. And so I would hope that at some point that the state would take those things into consideration, and that if we're not as a state on the victorious side of the determination by the Supreme Court, that maybe we should find some other case to busy ourselves with and let Nashville go about its business with its 40-member council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for hearing me out on that.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Representative Sparks. You're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. AG. My line of questions about consumer protection, what Representative Chairman Hawk's talking about. Matt Cook, I believe it was, helped me here well, it was about a year ago on what I call, I guess it was repossession of vehicles. I'd seen a credit union that literally loaned a young man like $22,000, and then he got behind during COVID, and they sold it at auction for $2,200. I sold 2,000 cars, visited an auction probably 1,000 times. Never seen that happen. But Matt, it did look into it. Sadly, that young man, they were happy to loan 22,000, and they were happy to sell at auction for 2,200. So something nefarious was going on with him. But I also wanted to ask you about fake reviews online. Is that something that y'all look into? Fake reviews? Like Yelp and consumer reviews.
I can,
Go ahead.
certainly if we get complaints about them through the Division of Consumer Affairs,
Yeah.
we're looking into them. It's not something that I have heard about, but we can
Well,
look
the reason I
into it.
share this, and this is something this entire body should listen to, and you in the audience, and reporters aren't going to cover this. The predatory lending is an issue that I have a problem with, and we should all have a problem with it. Seeing people lose their vehicle, then they lose their job, then they lose their home. Then the kids are more dependent on government, families more dependent on government. I'd had a young lady reach out to me. Well, she wasn't that young. Her vehicle was going to get repossessed. She's young. She was an African-American lady. Miss Helen, I made a video about it. It's on YouTube. Miss Helen Predatory Lending, if y'all will search for it. I think you'd find the video pretty interesting. My friends had told me they had sold her this car. And so she reaches out to me. She thought she was borrowing money for 11%, 11% a year. That's what they advertised. It was 11% all right, it's 11% a month. That's why I want everybody to watch that video. Miss Helen Predatory Lending. So I went, interviewed the guy, made a video about it, questioned him, tried to get him to settle. Well, I sold 2,000 cars. Most people would settle. They'll work with you. This company wouldn't work with them. Tennessee Title Pond, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Jackson Heights Plaza, off Broad Street. Wouldn't settle. I thought, man, this is fishy. This is because she'd already been suckered on one loan. Remember, she thought she borrowed money 11%. Sadly, her sister's out in the car, battling cancer, special needs. She's passed on now. They're going after her car. They're going after her car. So I told the guy, I said, man, do you realize if you took her car, the ramifications to her family, what's going to happen? She'd beg, plead, and borrow from everybody. And the guy was really a jerk. He would not settle with her. So I told him, I said, man, I'm going to cost you 10 grand worth of bad press. I promise you. We got Fox 17 out there. It's $10,000 worth of bad press. Easy $10,000 bad press, Dr. Love. Anyways, I knew what they were doing. And it's just sad. And I asked the woman, she had no voice. She don't know who to call. And luckily, my car dealer friend called me about it. And this has not just happened to Miss Helen. This happened to your constituents, Lee Reeves. It's happened to your constituents, David Hawks. It's happened to your constituents, Charlie Baum, and your constituents as well. But this whole system is really just corruption. I'm just going to say it, quote me, corruption. You should all care about this. We should care about this. But, you did follow up, and I appreciate y'all following up, these online reviews, because I asked the woman, you can see it in the video. I had to get the police out there to get the title. But him being a jerk is what cost him $10,000. If he'd have just settled like I asked him to, we wouldn't have had a problem. But I knew what he was doing. He suckered her twice. I mean, and it's sad. And when you got lawmakers that don't care, that's another sad day. I see a lot of sadness in our state. And it's sadness because people ignore some of the problems. But I hope you don't ignore the problem. These online reviews, I said, Miss Helen, why'd you borrow money from these people? Bud Halsey, I asked her, why did you borrow money from these people? You know what she said? He had 145 positive online reviews. I'm like, you really believe those reviews? She just believed it. She thought it was a real financial institution. But this is this guy's game, and he's running dealer plates. I asked the state, motor vehicle, what are you doing about it? They ain't doing nothing. There's so much lethargic attitude up here with departments. I hope your department isn't lethargic. I hope you look at this. Online reviews, it's a lot of fraud, and we need to start getting to the bottom of some of this stuff. And if I'm the only voice on this stuff, so be it. But thank you. Shout out to Matt Cook. Shout out to Leader Lambert for hiring Matt. Thanks, sir.
I'm not sure I'm going to shout out to Leader Lambert for hiring Matt Cook. we miss him, but he, I'm proud of the work he's done. I'm proud of where he's gone.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll certainly try to be just a little bit shorter than my colleague here. I just want to know, is this illegal? I buy new trucks about every year. Month later, I'll get something in the mail. I'll finance it. I'll get it covered insurance-wise and everything. And I'll get something in the mail from somebody, some company somewhere that says, it's urgent that you get in touch with us right away. You need coverage, etc. Same thing even in banking and lending. Is that legal, General?
I think it depends on exactly what it says and how it says it. There's a lot of, it's hard to be the Attorney General sometimes. I want to say there's a lot of shadiness involved in that. I probably shouldn't say that. Yeah, I did a home equity loan recently, and we were getting bombarded with all kinds of stuff along those lines.
Yes.
And, it really does depend. There's a lot of multi-state work on this stuff. We work with states across the country, in part because the resources are real hard. There's so many people doing this. We want to be responsive to everything. And we're trying to make sure we can be, but there is a lot out there to cover. So we can look into that for you and get you an answer on legality, as well as potential recommendations for next steps.
Representative Shaw.
I just did same thing, a home equity loan, and the next week I get this stuff in mail about how much insurance I can take out and how important that you get in touch with us about. I mean, they make it sound like you have broken some law if you don't call them, and that's why I was wondering if that was legal. Of course, this may not be the time to ask them. So I'm keep thinking, can we pass some legislation to stop this? Because people just don't want to be bombarded with that stuff.
We'll be very happy to help with legislation along that line. I think everybody probably deals with that stuff and does not like it.
Is it too late for us to file something this year?
That is not a question for the Attorney General.
All right. Thank you. Representative Chisholm, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me thank you for the robust conversations we've had over the summer. I really appreciate you opening the doors and having a listening ear. I do have a philosophical question. How does your office go about balancing civil rights enforcement with states' rights, particularly when areas where state law kind of conflicts with federal protections? So how do you all kind of work that out?
So and this is an ongoing process. We're just now starting to enforce the state civil rights laws. If there's a federal law to the contrary, and that federal law is constitutional, then the supremacy clause governs that. But for the core civil rights stuff, saying you can't discriminate on the basis of race, can't discriminate on the basis of sex, can't discriminate on the basis of religion. There's in employment, in public accommodations, the laws are a little bit different under the state laws than the federal laws, but the gist is the same. We want to enforce the laws. If someone's treating somebody differently because of the color of their skin, that's typically going to be illegal. And we want to enforce the law to make sure they stop doing that. Where the federal government is doing something that conflicts with what the state's doing, our job is to represent the legal interests of the state. And there's been a lot of federal overreach. Under the Biden administration, there was a lot of federal overreach that was directly contradictory to laws and policies that Tennessee adopted. So we litigated that a bunch. With the Trump administration, a lot of the stuff coming out of the executive branch is pretty aligned with a lot of the laws and policies that Tennessee's adopted. So there's less opportunity for friction there. But if there are areas where the federal government's overreaching, we got no hesitation to litigate. We have not seen that, I think, in the civil rights area of late, other than the Hispanic Serving Institutions litigation. But we want to enforce the state's laws appropriately. We want to make sure that the state has the opportunity to enforce its laws appropriately. So where the federal government conflicts with the state, there are times when the federal government or the federal constitution just is, that's the law of the land. It's the way the Constitution works. But if you've got federal actors that are overreaching what they're allowed to do, we'll fight them.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Final person on the list, Representative Miller, we'll come back to you, then we'll be finished up.
Attorney General, quick question based on the conversation. Last year, the year before that, this whole laws dealing with DEI. And then maybe we can talk about it later. But based on the questions and your answers, how does DEI play in your role today?
So I don't like talking about DEI as DEI because it's a term that means a lot of different things and it's been applied in different ways. But and we can have a longer discussion about this. We'll be very happy to do that. But the Supreme Court in the Students for Fair Admissions case made it really clear that, you can't treat people differently because of the color of their skin, no matter what the color of their skin is. And that's how we read the Tennessee laws as well. So, with respect to DEI, if you're looking at non-racial factors, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. But if you're treating people differently based on the color of their skin, that's just not gonna fly in the courts these days. So, our position is if you want to look at helping folks who are disadvantaged, you got to find categories of disadvantage that are constitutionally permissible. And, things like first generation college students, poverty, incarcerated parents, categories that apply regardless of race, but that put people at disadvantage because race is increasingly a poor indicator of disadvantage. We have a history of racial discrimination, but there have been a lot of efforts to remediate that. And the Constitution says you can't treat people differently based on their race.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was really going to stop it there in order that we not get into a long conversation about this now. But again, when you're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, some people are going to really not appreciate my next statement, but that's okay. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been coming to these budget hearings that long. And even during Democrats, even during Republicans administrations, we could have every department to come before us. And I guarantee you, the executive branch of these departments, diversity, equity, inclusion is almost none. And I'll just leave it at that.
All right, General, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for answering our questions. Really appreciate your questioning and answering. All right, let's move on. Next up is the Department of Veteran Services.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I know what he's gonna say. They can't. Sometimes the best answer.
That automatically change.
All right, welcome this morning to the Department of Veteran Services and Brigadier General Michael Scholes. We'd like to welcome you and thank you for being here. We will control the microphone, so when you see that red light come on, you may begin. But if you would, just begin with introductions and who you have with you. Thank you again for being here.
Absolutely. Chairman Hicks, Vice Chair Gillespie, and members, thank you for the opportunity to present the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services budget for fiscal year 27. And as you know, unfortunately, Commissioner Baker can't be here today. He has a higher calling, given the eulogy for a Vietnam veteran who passed away. With me, I have the Assistant Commissioner, Travis Murphy, for the Veterans Claim Services. I also have Assistant Commissioner Patrick Rice of Cemetery Operations. I have Director of Finance, Chrissy Yamasi. And I also have our counsel that's behind me that you know, Catherine Held, as she also is the legislative liaison. And in the audience too, we brought just to show them off the Governor's Veterans Fellows for this year too, headed by Director Nick Atwood. Yeah. All right, I'd like to begin and just say first, transformation under Governor Lee through strategic investment rather than expansion. The department focused on transforming itself using the best principles of change management. Being more customer facing, we align people, process, and technology to efficiently and effectively serve Tennessee service members, veterans, and their families. Every dollar used was strategic and with purpose. Since fiscal year 19, The base budget has increased by 7 million, but the outcomes tell the actual story. Employee turnover dropped from 19% to 7.3%. Customer satisfaction reached 98%, which is from more than 4,000 surveys sent out. These numbers reflect the public's confidence and pride within the workforce. For our capital investment, we received over $55 million towards cemetery projects. Of that, 90% of it came from federal funding. Every state veteran cemetery has been modernized to ensure long-term capacity and dignity. These projects were about stewardship, protecting sacred ground, and preserving Tennessee's final promise to those who served. Chairman and members, through relationships and partnerships, we've held more than 827 outreach events over this administration, connecting veterans, families, and their providers across the state. 242 veteran-ready businesses have committed to employ and support Tennessee veterans. More than 500 funeral homes partner with our cemeteries to provide consistent, dignified service to families. These relationships built a stronger statewide veteran network and laid the foundation for the Veterans Coordination Platform that we'll talk about on this next slide. The results of all this investment: Tennessee is now recognized as a national leader in veteran services through results and not rhetoric. Every outcome on this slide reflects disciplined leadership, modernization, and transformation efforts, and I'm on slide 3. We are the national leaders in cemetery operations. Tennessee is the only state with 100% operational excellence awards. Of our last 6 inspections, we were 6 of 6 across all state veteran cemeteries. Each cemetery is nationally recognized for quality, safety, and care. Expansion and improvements were achieved with strong federal support at a minimal state cost. For our claims and appeals, we received the Abraham Lincoln Pillars of Excellence Award from the Department of Veterans Affairs for innovation in the virtual hearing partnership model. Veterans in 77 counties now attend hearings locally with faster access to benefits. Tennessee veterans receive $1.7 billion each year in federal benefits through TDVS representation, and $90 million in retroactive benefits have been secured since fiscal year 2021. Appeal success rates are at 88%, which is an astounding 21% above the national average. The Veteran Coordination Platform on April 26 will be launching the VCP with the Tri-Stars and Strike Council. It will be the first statewide system linking county offices, veteran service organizations, and community providers. The VCP will help reduce confusion and provide clarity on benefits, resources, and services available to eligible members within the veteran community. It connects veterans to statewide resources through Find Help, aligning with TennCare and Human Services to reduce duplication and improve collaboration and coordination. On slide 5, comes to our request, which is $15.25 million, which is a flat request with 0 cost increases. This reflects the efficiency gains we've built into our operations. And finally, last slide, as we move into fiscal year 27, the same principles will guide us: responsibility, performance, and unwavering commitment to Tennessee service members, veterans, and their families. Thank you, and we will welcome any questions that you have.
All right, thank you very much. We do have several folks on the list for some questioning, and we will begin with Chairman Boyd. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we appreciate y'all coming out today. And I know that you guys had mentioned in the governor's budget hearing that benefits or claims had nearly doubled since 2019 from, it says 11,448 to 19,426. And so it begs the question, how many county service officers are there statewide?
Thank you. Thank you for that question, sir. Right now, there are currently 148 county veteran service officers that are accredited through the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services. So 93 and 95 counties have at least one service officer, and several have more robust offices depending on the needs of their county.
You recognize. Go right ahead,
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman. Are there, so it sounds like we're pretty well covered. Are there any regions that need more or lack anything or?
I don't think so, sir. I think that claim growth demonstrates the coverage that we have, the outcomes in terms of monetary benefits. We continue to engage with our county partners, provide them with information to make informed decisions about those staffing levels, economic impact that veteran service officers have in their community, productivity measures that we can gather from our claims management system. So it's a constant dialogue and conversation to support county partners.
Chairman Boyd?
Yeah, during the times that the government was shut down, did y'all have any issues with federal services being paused or anything? And how did y'all respond to that?
Yeah, we had a very minimal impact on accreditation. We had 8 individuals go through our training course, and their federal recognition was delayed for a short period of time. VA operations continued throughout the shutdown, so no impact to veterans or their family members because of that.
Chairman Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all.
All right, thank you. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I just wanted to, and ladies, I wanted to ask about the 2019, we set aside $600,000 for an Upper Cumberland Veterans Cemetery. We've perfected the art of waiting on the federal government.
Yes.
And I wondered if you could give us an update really on what's going on there. I think we're changed to that project maybe.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we were really fortunate, almost written that off. But I would say that because we have done so well and worked so closely with the NCA and, of course, the Operational Excellence Awards, we were 30th on the list. But when they gave us the money, they knew that we could execute it, and we could actually start the design process on that very quickly. We worked very closely with Stream. We're about at the 30% design implementation on that. And we are going to meet the deadlines that they have imposed on us. And we should be breaking ground by the end of this year.
Okay. Thank you for that. Obviously this is new to me and I'm new to the Upper Cumberland. Of course, you're saying that we could break ground in December. How long does a project like that take to get to a certificate of occupancy or operational for veterans?
Well, obviously based off the size and the scope of the project, but it usually takes about 18 months for that to take place. But in this case, we really had to move fast on it based off the timing and also get it in front of the GCP, in which we did. Everything was approved, and we are well on the way to meet the deadlines.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate your help.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the service and the work that y'all do as a funeral director, dealing with the cemeteries. I'm excited to see the Upper Cumberland get a cemetery there in White County. So great news. I've got a question about the Network of Care and Coordination Program. FY 25-26 budget provided $553,800, $313 for non-recurring to maintain and enhance the quality and efficiency of services provided to veterans and their families while expanding outreach to underserved regions. Has the coordination platform been implemented?
Thank you for the question. We will implement it on April 26th will be the implementation of that. And we are working closely with our veteran service organizations, nonprofits, but more importantly, we're working really close with TennCare, who first implemented using FindHelp, the same program. And as indicated in the presentation, it is allowing us to do a lot more coordination and collaboration because a lot of the information that's going to be in that is also in their databases. So it's really going to help in implementation, the speed of that. So we'll implement April 26th, and it's a pillar program of the Tri-Stars and Stripes Council. And we are really looking forward to it.
Chairman Hill.
Have you tracked any measurable advancements in outreach to underserved regions?
Sir, that's a great question. And it's something that we have worked hard on, especially the last couple of years. We have not only increased in terms of our technological means to get to underperformed regions in rural counties. We have used many different modems. We've had marketing dollars that have been focused on using radio, social media, and we have seen an increase in reaching those rural regions. We have gone through a lot of technological upgrades and modernizations. Not only with VCP will be a tremendous use of those dollars, but we have also gone and we have created a dashboard in which we focus, and we have set KPIs on our social media to help us understand how we are reaching them, and we have seen a tremendous increase in those measures.
Chairman Hale.
Final question or remark, both. As Chairman Boyd talked about the county service officers, I want to say firsthand how valuable they are
Yes, sir.
to the families that we serve. I wish there was a way that, especially in the county where I live, that we could have them more full-time. Where they're just there a couple of days a week, it makes it difficult for families and stuff. But how valuable they are to our communities and to our veterans is, I just want to say thank you so much for all you do.
Yes, sir. No, thank you, sir. And they are extremely valuable. They're part of the team. And it's really, we are just getting such great intellect with the new, especially this week, we have the new accreditation team in. We're just getting some really great county service officers as partners, and we're really proud of that and how we work together.
Representative Sparks, you're recognized.
Want to pay acknowledgement to your late father. He passed, was it last year?
Yes, sir, about a year ago.
Tell
Yes,
us to me about your father, if you don't mind.
Oh,
We don't put you on the spot.
yes, sir. He was my rock, but he retired a Major General. He was a Special Forces Ranger Hall of Famer. He served 2 tours in Vietnam, in which he received the Ranger Hall of Fame recognition. He led the forces into Panama, directed the hunt for Noriega. He directed the forces in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, defense of Saudi Arabia. So he had an illustrious career.
Yes.
And it was a shock. I still can't believe that he has passed away.
Yes. Reason I ask, I never got to thank my father. He served World War II, flew on B-17s, 24 missions, shot down once, crash landed twice. And he used to tell me, he says, remember when you see the B-17s go down, he said most of them men couldn't escape.
Yes, sir.
They were all lost. So
Yes, sir.
anyway, I never got to thank him. So acknowledge your father is kind of my way of thanking him. Wanted to ask you, our veterans in Tennessee, are they receiving the best care possible at our veterans' homes?
At the Veterans Homes, so we serve on the ex officio board of the Tennessee Veterans Homes, but I would say that especially under the leadership of their director, is that they are the best run Tennessee Veterans Homes in the nation. Not
Yes, sir.
only is that, but Ed is recognized and heads the association for the Veterans Homes because of his work. A lot of these states who are building veteran homes come to Tennessee to see how we're doing it because we set the standard on our
Yes, sir.
performance.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Next on the list will be Representative Capley. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question was answered. Appreciate
All
y'all.
right,
Thanks.
thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here for your presentation. I would be remiss, I don't have a question, but if I didn't tell you that your staff and your honor guard standing at Parker's Crossroad are the best. I know everybody's good, but I want you to know they are the best, and we appreciate it. We get to visit with them quite often with different activities, and I just want to tell you how much we appreciate what they do and the service that they offer.
Yes.
And watching them to explain, fold that flag and explain what it means is phenomenal. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for saying that. They are sharp. What's really great about them is just watching them and being a part of their training. I mean, to actually do training, to prepare for that, taking time out of their day, making sure their uniforms are sharp and the presentation. They are an extremely well-run group that really proud to work with. We have a lot of those across the state, and it's something special to see. I appreciate you saying that, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for sharing your father's history with us.
Thank you,
I really appreciate it. I was just telling the member that our time we served together. So I really appreciate you sharing his story with us. A question on the veteran service officers you spoke to. You said you thought we had enough. I was in Veterans Caucus this morning, and we were hearing there that we didn't have enough. And maybe it's because, as Chairman Hill was saying, it's so valuable, we need more. So maybe we could talk offline about this, but that came up just this morning in Veterans Caucus that we need more, and particularly I think it was saying in West Tennessee, but I'm kind of vague on that part of it. But if we could talk later about maybe how the allocation works, what does the statute say about how many you can have, or what your rules are around, that might be helpful for us to understand why the numbers are what they are. So I'd appreciate an opportunity to sit down with you and talk about that. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Leader. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for all you do for our veterans, and thank you all for being here. I wanted to give a shout out to our Veterans Services Officer in Tipton County, Mike Leach, and just the phenomenal work that those officers do for our veterans, and how they try to. Our veterans are so humble, and they see what all they could do to help them, and they're just, they really need to be coaxed sometimes that you earned this, and this is due you. And so another little caveat, I'll give a shout out to our Tipton County Museum, which is located in Covington. They began honoring a veteran program, and we are blessed to have so many veterans in our county. And so we do it once a month. They do it once a month. I get to participate a little, but that has been an amazing thing to see, because they'll send us their bio. We do a proclamation and fly a flag at the Capitol for them and present to them. And then they give them a chance to speak if they want to. And a lot of times the veterans are like, no, we're good, we're good. But man, when they do speak, sometimes they've not ever said these things about their service to their family. And they're sitting there with their mouths open going, oh my goodness. And then sometimes, it's just an amazing and privilege to get to be there. And of course I can't when we're in session, but oh my goodness, if y'all have a museum or something like that, they have to apply. And the only requirement is that they live in Tipton County. And I've seen them when some of the veterans have a health issue that looks like they're not going to be on this earth much longer. We'll bump them up so we can do it while they're still here. And we even recently had one that was in ICU, and they pulled us together really quick, and we got to do it there before he passed. But it's a wonderful idea. I'll talk to you more about it if you want to. But one other shout out, that Fisher House at the VA in Memphis. Oh my goodness. What a blessing to those families. So just keep doing the good work, and thank you all for your service. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Brigadier General. I will let the General know that you filled in very, very admirably today. So thank you
thank you,
for
sir.
answering our questions, for your presentation. And without further ado, we're going to go back into session. And that does complete our calendar for today. So just a reminder that budget hearings will resume tomorrow, February the 12th at 10:30 a.m. in House Hearing Room 1. Do we have any further business coming before the committee? Without objection, we stand adjourned.